Okay, hi guys. So today we're looking at lesson 12.6, line plots and links. And our I can statement for this lesson is I can measure to the nearest fourth inch and show the data on a line plot. And I know we haven't really been talking about measurement a whole lot, just been focusing on fractions. So throughout this lesson, yes, it is involving length, but we're also just going to be paying attention to the fractions because the nearest fourth inch literally just means that a 4 is the denominator. Okay, so to the nearest fourth inch is the 4 is the denominator, like right here. I didn't even know that red thing could come up. But we're going to look at the solve and share first. So it says Monica and her friends measured the length of their shoes. Show this data by marking a dot for each length on the number line below. Measure the length of one of your shoes. Add a dot to represent the length on the number line. What length was most common? So literally, like they said, put a dot. So if I look at A, it's 8 inches, put a dot over that. We have 8 2/4, 9 1/4, 8 2/4 again. And I'm not crossing them off as I'm doing it, but if you wanted to mark this up, you could, or like put like a line next to it showing that you've used it. That's totally fine. We have another 9 1/4, another 9 1/4. So this one seems to be pretty popular. Maybe it'll be the most common. Then we have a 9. Then we have another 9 1/4. And then we have another 9. And then we have an 8 1/4. So just by looking at this without even, and if you measured your own shoe, great. You could add it wherever it falls. If it didn't give you one of these measurements, that's okay. So we have to look at the main question they asked us was what length was the most common. So which one has the most dots? That's like literally it. Which one has the most dots? So for this one, 9 1/4 is the most common length because that one has the most dots. The little speech bubble here says you can make sense of problems as you plan to solve them. How will marking the data you know on the number line help you solve the problem? How did marking these dots here help me solve what length was most common? Again, it showed me which one had the most dots. It showed me which one there was the most of, what length was the most common, which one was the size of their shoes, the length of their shoes. And again, it was just going here, reading off the data table that they gave us, and marking the dot to the corresponding number on the length of shoes number line. I'm going to clear this, so if you need to, pause it. I'm going to move down to the look back section, change my color. So it says reasoning, so like, can you give a reason for something? Does it make sense? Why would you solve it a certain way? Are there different ways to record the results of the data collection? Explain. So for this, your answer could either be yes or no, and I'll explain why for both. So I'm not going to be writing anything down here. Just like listen for the explanation I'm giving. So if I were to say no, it would be no because I would be talking about this data collection I was using up here. So if I were to talk about just based off this data collection up here, no, because they told me to add a dot to represent the length on the number line, because they told me to use the number line. Okay, so that would be my no because. If you were to put yes because, that means you thought about it as using any kind of data, and that's also correct. So yes, there are different ways to show to record the results of the data collection. So I could record them in this table here. I can record them on the graph here. So if you put yes or no, as long as you gave a full explanation, I'll take it. If you want to change your reasoning after listening to this, that's fine too. But remember, what you're turning into me should be the way you're thinking of it. Even if it's not correct, I still kind of want to see your thought process behind what you're doing. So again, as long as you gave an explanation, whether you put yes or no, it just depends on if you were using the solve and share question up here to decide your answer, like directions they gave, or if you were thinking about any kind of data and it could be any problem. Okay, I am going to turn the page. Okay, so our essential question is how can you make and use line plots? So a line plot is what we made on the page before this, where again, I just dotted and used the dots up, and you can see in part B right here, it also has the dots going up on this number line. So the question and the example they're giving us is to solve this problem here. Anna is measuring the length of her crayons. How can she use a ruler to measure to the nearest fourth inch? So if you have a ruler at home, when you're doing this, if you want to pull it out, you can also, you can just like Google like online ruler or like ruler template, and like a digital one should pop up, whether if you can print it out, if you have a printer at home. I obviously didn't include rulers when I sent home packets, so it's not something you have to use. Just if having that physical item in front of you is something that you might think is helpful to you, take one out. So I'm just going to read this one more time. Anna is measuring the length of her crayons. How can she use a ruler to measure to the nearest fourth inch? So they give us a complete explanation, which I am going to read. So it says line up one end of the object with 0. Because remember, even if it's on a ruler, if it's on a number line, we're always going to start at 0 to start our measurements and to start looking at our data. It says the 10th 1/4 inch mark is closest to the end of the crayon. So they break this down again, like we looked at the number lines yesterday with the 1/4 between 0 and 1. How many spaces did they create? They created, having it be 4 total spaces, including the 1. That's why it's to the 4th, and they're also asking us for the 4th inch. So having the 4 again being the denominator on the bottom. So it says the 10th 1/4 inch mark is close to the right end of the crayon, so over here. And then, so the nearest fourth inch, the crayon, to the nearest fourth inch, sorry, the crayon measures 10/4 inches. So here, like, I can draw it on it. I keep forgetting. Like if I go down, it's closest to 10/4 to the nearest 10/4 inch. So it says this is 2 whole inches and 2 1/4 inches. You can write this as 2 and 2/4 because they want it to be still in fourths. But you have like 2 holes. Okay, so the 1 hole being the 4/4, and then you get another 2 hole being the 8/4. And remember, I said when you go to like the whole number, when you get to like a 1 or a 2 or a 3, 4, 5, etc., take the numbers and divide them. So if I were to do 4 divided by 4, that's a 1. That's a 1 hole. 8 divided by 4, it's a 2. That's again the second whole. So basically, if you can take the bottom number away from the top, like a certain amount of times, that's how many holes you'll have. And we aren't quite there. We didn't make it to the 3 inch, which would have been again 3 holes. And then for part B, it says Anna measured her 9 other crayons. She then recorded the data in a line plot. So this is what she used here after she measured all of her crayons. If you want to measure crayons at your house and do an activity similar to this, that's fine. Send it to me. I'll give you some extra credit if you want to do that. You don't have to. It's not required. But again, if it's something that interests you, please do it. And then here it says steps to make a line plot. Draw a number line, show a scale based on the data. So the scale here is showing like the 1 3/4 to 2 to 2 1/4, 2 2/4, and 2 3/4. So the scale is just going up by the 1/4 because this 2 is the same as like the 7/4, or sorry, 8/4. So if you would like keep going. So yeah, they could have included other numbers in here like we had on the page before and just not had marks above them, which is what I would have done. It says write a title for the line plot. So length of crayons, because that's the data that they're measuring. Just like if you have a graph, you'd be using a title for this and mark a dot for each data value. So for each crayon, basically like this represents one crayon, this represents another, and another, and then the rest of the dots. They all represent individual crayons. It says, in the speech bubble, you have used number lines to show fractions. A line plot is a way to organize data on a number line. And even when you're not using fractions in measurement, you can still use a line plot, hopefully, which I didn't say this in the beginning, hopefully you've seen this before, because I'm pretty sure you probably would have done at least something like this in second grade because you guys used graphs and other things to organize data. But if not, welcome to line plots. So I am going to erase this. I didn't really draw a whole lot up here, so you shouldn't have to pause it. I'm going to go down to the convince me section. And it says here, make sense and persevere. So we have to give, like, I know the one before this was reasoning, but for making sense, like, does it actually make sense? And persevere, because it means that maybe the problem's going to be difficult and we need to try and continue to solve it. So Nathan also made a line plot to show the lengths of his crayons. Tell 3 things about the lengths of Nathan's crayons. So this could be any 3 things. I'll list 3 things that I noticed. 2 1/4 inches was the most common length of Nathan's crayons. He had 5 crayons, 5 lengths that each had 3 crayons. So the lengths, like, I'll underline them, 2, 3, 4, 5. So those 5 lengths, he had 3 crayons for each of those lengths. And then he only had 1 crayon that was 1 inch long. So those are 3 things that I noticed. I could have said the 2 most common lengths were these 2 measurements, 2 1/4 and 1 3/4. Again, as long as you're just looking at the data table and you told me 3 things that you noticed about these dots and the lengths on the graph data table, data example over here, you're good. Okay, I'm going to erase it and go to the next page. Again, I didn't draw a whole lot, so there wasn't really anything to correct and copy on your end. Just make sure you're hopefully listening. And then we're going to go to our guided practice. It says, do you understand? Measure the length of this line to the nearest 1/4 inch. Now, this is when you will need a ruler. If you do not have a printer at home, where you can't print out like a paper ruler, if you don't have an actual ruler, or like mom or dad doesn't have a measuring tape at home that you could use for this, please write that. So then I know that you like just didn't leave it blank. It's just because maybe we don't have the tools that we need. Obviously, since I'm doing it on this, I don't have a ruler that I can pull up, but I am just going to write what the answer would be. So it would be about 2 3/4 inches. If I had a ruler that I could pull up, maybe there's a way I could do it. I'm not positive. I would, but because it was like 2 full inches, and then if I were to count how many 1/4 after that, it would be 2 3/4. For number 2, it says describe how you would show this measurement on a line plot. I would just say I would make a dot above 2 3/4 on my line plot. So like if this is the line and say it said 2 3/4 here, I would just make a dot above that. That's it. Okay. So just I would make a dot above the measurement 2 3/4 on the line plot. Okay. Over here, for number 3, it says draw a line plot to show the data. So let's do like a number line. I'm going to start with my smallest, which is 3 1/4, and 3 2/4. And I'm not realizing my line plot's probably not big enough, so I'm going to have to extend it a little bit, which is fine. 3 3/4, and then 4. And as you can see, mine's a little messy. If yours looks like that, that's fine. And then I'm just going to look at the numbers that they give me. So I see one of them is 3 1/4. I'm going to cross it off and mark it. 3 3/4, cross it off, mark it. 3 1/4, another one, mark it. 4, mark it, and then 3 2/4. So again, just making it, I'll try and get that purple color back. I didn't mark my little like dashes, but just again, drawing, that's not even kind of close, but that's okay. Drawing a line like where, and then drawing your dots above that. So it's basically, again, just organizing our data that they have given us. And then last but not least, number 4, for the top part, measure your pencil to the nearest 4th inch, show the length on your line plot. So if you have a pencil, a marker, a pen, yeah, any of them are fine. And if it's larger than that, add it. So like say your pencil is like 5 inches or whatever, that's fine. Put it there. If it was 5 1/4 inch, or if you need to add another, like I said, if you have to add a larger number, a smaller number, because I know some of you write with the tiniest pencils in the entire world, then move it this way, obviously, and add a dot above whatever your measurement is. I don't have a pencil in front of me because I have my little digital one, and this isn't even 1 inch, so I'm not going to mark it. I am going to erase this though. Okay, and moving down to the last part that we'll be covering, I'm going to go bluish. Independent practice, it says Daisy measured the lengths of her toy dinosaurs to the nearest 4th inch. She listed the lengths. Make a line plot to show the data. So again, making another line plot over here. I'll make it larger this time. We're going to start with 1 2/4. 1, we're going to have, spread little dashes, 1 3/4. And we'll have our 2. And we'll do 2 1/4, and I could go on and do like 2 2/4, 2 3/4, but I don't have to. Just because I noticed that it's only going up to 2 1/4 here. So I'll change my color. So I have 1 2/4, put my dot, 2 1/4, dot, 1 inch. I forgot to do, so we're gonna go back real quick. Gonna go this way. It's gonna be 1, and then this will be 1 1/4. Sorry, I completely overlooked that 1 inch measurement here. Okay, now going back to my dots, 1 inch. And also cross them off as you're doing it. 1 2/4, another one, and then 1 3/4. So yeah, I didn't need the 1 1/4 or the 2 here, but like I said before, the way I would do it is having all those measurements in there, so you know like how much space should be between it, so it's still accurate, because it's not like the 1 is going to go right next to 1 2/4. Like that 1 1/4 is going to be in between there, even if it's not one of the lengths we're using. And then down here, it says measure the lengths of the toy dinosaurs at the right to the nearest 4th inch. Write the lengths for each toy. Show the lengths on your line plot. So this one right here was 1 inch. So I would do another dot above my 1. And then this one is 2 1/4. So I would have it there. And again, if you were to make an observation about this data, you could say that 1 3/4 was the least common measurement length that was given, and the other 3 lengths that you measured or that were measured all have 2 dinosaurs that are that size. So Daisy has 2 dinosaurs that are 1 inch, 2 dinosaurs that are 1 2/4 inches, and then 2 1/4 inches. I'm gonna erase this now. So pause it if you need to. Okay, so you've made it to the end of this video. Congrats. Tell me when you submit your work that you watched it so you can get your extra credit points. Um, I know I mentioned posting pictures of like the candy bar yesterday, and I completely lost track of time. So I will have I'll post pictures on the stream today, just showing you different household items that you can show in like fractions. And then, like I told you, if you want to send me pictures, that's also just more extra credit for your grade, but none of it's required. But yeah, so make sure you tell me that you watched this video because it is part of your assignment. And that's all. Okay, bye guys.